to record. It's further down and it's on the right, and then you go down these famous steps where they used to record and they would look up at the control room. But really there is a connection between Odyssey and Oracle and Sgt. Pepper because we were using the same studios and the same engineers.
One of the things that Geoff Emerick, who's became so lucky to have become a dear friend, and so many of us here that he came many times, and when we asked him, I said, why did you grab, what was it about the Zombies? And I know you guys have talked with him since, and he said, every band that was being booked into Abbey Road said, I want the Beatles engineer, we want the Beatles sound. And he said, I always said no, because the Beatles sound are the Beatles sound. I don't care who you are, what's your sound? And he said, when these guys came in, they never said we wanted the Beatles sound. He said, it was, we want to create our sound. And he said, this ethereal, beautiful sound. He said, it's as psychedelic as anything we did on Pepper, but it sounds nothing like Pepper. I'm in. What can I do to help? And think about what the ask is. They didn't ask to sound like the Beatles. They came into the same studio with these equipment, but made this gem of this gorgeous, ethereal album. I mean, and I mean it sincerely. I'm friends with them and fans, but from Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds and Strawberry Fields, to Beechwood Park, to where you take us, it's journeys, these musical journeys. And Geoff always describes sound, he said, I see it in colors. He said, I like to paint. And that's what I always felt that album did. And for all these people who have suddenly discovered Odyssey and Oracle, we all had the hit single time of the season. But a song like Chris's The Butcher's Tale, which I had missed as a child, it is the most painfully honest, heartbreaking, beautiful song. Sir, what an amazing piece of work.
Thank you.
It is heartbreaking, and then, rather than guitars, for you to take that pump organ to it. That is as magical, and I mean it sincerely where I'm saying, that's as magical as any music decision John, Paul, or George ever made.
We had to take the pedal organ on top of our van to Abbey Road because they didn't have the same thing there, so that was quite an effort.
Do you know, we saw Geoff Emerick just literally a few days before he died, and we were doing a concert with Arcade Fire in Los Angeles, and Geoff came along, and I must have spoken to him for an hour, and at the end of it he said, don't forget our conversation, do not forget. He said, this is not just something I'm saying. He said, we have to do another record together. We have to do it. And he said, will you phone me? We'll get this together and talk about it over the next few days. And then 3 days later he was dead. You know, it's so sad, but he did have a working affection with us, actually, and we did with Geoff. I remember when one of the tracks he did the recording for in the studio was Time of the Season, and I remember that first simple bass and tom riff at the beginning. He actually got something that it was so, the bass and the toms were so in tune with each other. There was just something quite magic about the way he heard that combination. And I remember George Martin saying that on Revolver, he said really that whole album was down to Geoff Emerick. He said he was he about 15 or 16 at the time? He was incredibly young.
His first time as the chief engineer behind the desk, as he said, I walk in, I've got my fresh grease pencils, I've got fresh tape, and John walks in the door and says, I want to sound like the Dalai Lama screaming from a mountaintop. And he said, and then George Martin says, well, let Geoff sort it, and we'll leave. And he goes, and my heart sank, because all I've got is 2 tape decks, mixing board, and equipment. Well, what are you going to do then? He goes, oh, all right. But every punch-in that you have now in Pro Tools, and every digital trick, is something that Geoff and these guys did, like, let's move this, we'll put a tea towel on the drums, and what if I solder the mic to the Leslie, and then I'll mic and make up literally like Rube Goldberg, making up equipment as you guys went along, and look what the result was.
And he wasn't scared of forgetting all the rules. I mean, it was just what you were saying, really.
He said I was too young to know. He
was too young. And George Martin tells the story of when he was working on Revolver, and they were all very proper in Abbey Road. It was a very old-fashioned studio. They were great guys, but very old-fashioned. And Geoff Emerick was getting a sound, and he said to George, it needs some top. And George said, okay, well, so we'll try a bit of top. And then Geoff Emerick said, that's not top, this is top. And he turned it up to 100%, and George went, my initial reaction was, oh, but it was great. And he changed their way of thinking about things.
So he said, I hadn't read the handbook of, all mics must be at least 8 inches from a drum. I didn't read that. He wanted the drums louder, so I took the front of the drum off and put the mic in it, but it was too boomy. And then I noticed there was a doll the Rolling Stones had sent, so I put the doll in the kick drum, and that seemed to fix it. As has every drummer ever now put a sandbag or something in the kick drum.
Absolutely. I was very lucky to have my kit, and I got the same kit as Ringo had. I thought, if it's good enough for Ringo, it's going to be good enough for me. So when we recorded, I put those drums exactly where Ringo had sat, and he took the head off, and he did exactly that.
Did he?
Yeah, and fantastic.
You just...
The back of the band, I really need to get up the front. And I had no inkling of drums, although my father, who was an aircraft engineer, had made me a drum from various bits of old aircraft when I was about 2 or 3, literally. And I used to drive my mum mad, but I probably sort of grew out of that. But after that, I decided to move on to the drums.
But why did you want to be at the front of the band?
The very simple reason was, I thought the girls who were lining the streets would be looking at me more than anybody else. How vain was that? Fortunately,
as has always been the case, the head shake to playing drums in the front of the marching band, it's always the same reason for a teenager.
Absolutely.
Rock and Roll Hall of Famers, the Zombies, with us. Thank you so much for coming. We have a few more minutes. Can we stay for a little? Okay. Here's the craziest part of the Zombie story that doesn't touch the Stones or the Beatles or the Who or Zeppelin or anything. They've created this masterpiece, and it's something we touched on a moment ago. Before they go out to tour with their Sgt. Pepper's album, the band breaks up. Before it even gets out there. And you were so sweet to mention Al Cooper last night in your induction speech. Anybody know Al Cooper, Blood, Sweat, and Tears? So Al Cooper is working as an A&R guy, at the record label. And he's in England, right? He gets a bunch of records and he's listening through them, just listening. And he told me the story years ago. And I put on this weird looking thing, Odyssey and Oracle. And it's cool. And I get the time of the season. And he went to the Bostons and went, you have a hit record here. And they went, no. This is a hit record. The band broke up because I don't care if they're alive or dead. This is a hit record. This is a hit record. No, I'm telling you, this is as big a hit as you've ever had. So there's no Zombies, and Odyssey and Oracle comes out, and Time of the Season is one of the biggest hits in the world.
And not only that, it's we found out because this is quite often the case with our early records that the record executives would hear them and say that's not commercial. It happened. She's not there.
What?
Yeah, they
didn't think She's Not There is commercial.
They just didn't really get it. I mean, they put it out. They thought it's a nice record, but nothing's going to happen. But anyway, with Time of the Season, it was the last gasp release from Clive Davis, who was actually convinced by Al to put it out, and it has become, I think, one of the top 50 English records in number of plays that's ever been played in America.
Every single person here, including myself, can remember exactly where we were when we heard it. It was that special. It exploded out of that radio.
Well, one of the most interesting things is the same night we were inducted, that day, the 29th, 50 years ago exactly, it went to #1 in Cashbox.
To the day.
Really? Yesterday.
To the day to yesterday.
It's something we talked about with Alan White. There's a kismet, a karma, whatever you want to call it. There's a reason this all seems to be happening. Everybody said, what if Ivan didn't introduce 15-year-old Paul to John Lennon? But he did. And what if you did? But you did. And these things, coincidence, you know, karma, God, whatever you want to say, these things just keep happening. But without them, can I share the ZZTop story with them? So Billy Gibbons has become an acquaintance, and I didn't know this at all. I didn't read it. And I was just talking about how much I love the Zombies. He's got this weird smile on his face. Like what? He goes, you know this, right? And I said, what? He goes, well, we weren't getting anywhere in Texas. You know, we were just playing some blues, and we loved the Zombies. And we read they broke up. So I said to Dusty, well, ain't nobody really knows what they look like down here, so what if we're the Zombies? My hand to God, what you know is ZZTop. How. They toured as the Texas as the Zombies.
And when things start to go downhill for us, we're going to become a ZZTop tribute.